Shut up and sit down.
Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's having a wonderful time right now. This is Beef the Legend with another edition of Rewatch, Review, Rewrite. So, when we last left our hero, I had been to WrestleMania 4. And I have some thoughts on the next few. So we're going to try and truncate these as much as possible and group them together. So I'm going to be talking WrestleManias 5 through 9. There's a theme with all of these WrestleManias 5 through 9, and that is Hulk Hogan. So WrestleMania 1 through 4 obviously was a showcase of Hogan. Now WrestleMania 4 ended with Macho Man Randy Savage getting the title and WWF at the time seeming to say, hey, maybe we can make a new face star. Maybe we can have a new, face of the company. And then a year later, Hogan won it back from Savage. And then WrestleMania 6, wash, rinse, repeat. The Ultimate Warrior won the belt from Hogan in a big pass the torch moment. And he held it till the following Royal Rumble when he lost to Sergeant Slaughter, who then lost it to Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 7. And then WrestleMania 8 was Hulk Hogan's retirement. We don't like that. Retirement match. Where he was like, I'm done. He never said, I'm done. Vince McMahon basically put those words in his mouth. But yeah, like that was supposed to be the swan song. And WrestleMania 9, he returned to once again win the title. See the theme? Kind of a wave form of Hogan getting put over. So WrestleMania 5 had some fun moments for sure. I can't say that the main event brought it down. It was a good main event. I think my biggest concern with WrestleMania 5 was the main event with Elizabeth, where she backed both Hogan and Savage, and I get that she was a I understand that she was a valet for both of them, but she was Savage's girl, so mm, seems kind of silly. So something that struck me from the beginning was the push that they were seemingly going to give the Rockers. They gave them a mic spot before their match with the Twin Towers, seemingly to say, here are these young guys, let's get them some traction. And then they lost to the Twin Towers. Obviously, we know that Shawn Michaels turned into a success. He turned into Mr. WrestleMania, but I think this was a dumb move. You know, real, just not a big fan. Um, the tag team title match was kind of a throwaway. This was Demolition's run. They beat the Powers of Pain with Master Fuji. Eh, eh. Um, the Brainbusters versus the Strike Force, I think, was a better tag team match than that one, anyway. And you had the Hart Foundation standing tall. They had Rick Rude beat the Warrior for the WWF Intercontinental Championship, which kind of threw me. And yes, I am referring to some notes that I made, um, because you know it's been a minute. I'm on WrestleMania 13 currently, so yeah, it's been a minute. Um, yeah, so Rick Rude beating Ultimate Warrior was a head scratcher for sure, especially when we know that the Warrior would eventually get the title back and get his big push next year at WrestleMania. I don't know, man. Um, that never made a lot of sense to me. But I mean, overall, I think that 5 was a pretty good, pretty passable WrestleMania. It again emanated from Trump Plaza in Atlantic City, so it was again a unique venue. I liked that they kind of bookended the story with Macho Man and Hulk Hogan there. Um, again, Hogan is one of the greatest of all time. He was a household name for people who had no idea what wrestling was. So yeah, he was kind of a big deal. WrestleMania 6. I'm just looking over some of my notes here, and again, the tag team title match was nothing to write home about. It was Demolition versus the Colossal Connection, which was Andre and Haku. And then after this match is when Bobby Heenan kind of tossed Andre aside, and Andre kind of broke free from the shackles. Like that was more of the story. But again, Demolition just continuing their dominance. Um, I felt like Earthquake versus Hercules could have been more. I feel like they dropped the ball big time with Earthquake. I think that he absolutely could have been a big time foil for Hulk Hogan, and they missed on it. The Hart Foundations beat the Bolsheviks in 19 seconds. You know why? There's some of these things just make no sense to me, other than getting the guys a quick payday. One of the big hallmarks of this WrestleMania was I mean, other than the Ultimate Challenge, obviously, was the mixed tag team match with Dusty Rhodes and Sapphire facing off with Randy Savage and Queen Sherry. Um, it was a good match. It was Dusty Rhodes, I think, his only match at WrestleMania. So, they beat Savage and Sherry, and of course Miss Elizabeth was involved, keeping that story kind of floating right along. And again, you have the Rockers lose another match. So, like, it feels like they set the Rockers up for failure every single time. They knew how over these guys were with the crowd, and at the time, yes, they were hella over. They absolutely should have been champions, but they just kept pulling the rug out from under them. I don't know. Very, very confusing. And then yeah, I mean, you had some one-offs and just weird matches here. Obviously, the story on this one was Hogan versus Warrior for the WWF Championship, and it was a double title match for the Intercontinental title. So it was a winner take all. I think that was the first time that may have happened. But it was a gruel, man. Like, yeah, there were some really cool spots in there, but I mean, like, it was a grind to get through it. Um, Two big guys like that, Hogan wrestling the heel style, very slow and methodical. It just never became what I think they wanted it to be. And then of course Hogan protecting himself as much as he possibly could. I'll say this about Hulk Hogan: he's a smart businessman. In that he protected his brand as much as possible. Every WrestleMania he came away smelling like a rose, even if he lost the damn title. Hogan kicked out of the Ultimate Warrior's Gorilla Press, followed up by the splash, the combo finish, at like 3 and 1/10. So no sooner did the ref's hand hit the mat for a 3, Hogan was kicking out, not a shoulder up, kicking out. Um, and then of course he grabbed the title and presented it to Warrior, and again, what should have been a fun um passing of the torch was not that, because the next year we ran into more of Hogan's ego. And I don't know how much of it was Hogan's ego and how much of it was, Vince wanting to protect his top star. So WrestleMania 7 was to be competed at the Rose Bowl. They played it up real hard at WrestleMania 6 that it was going to be at the Rose Bowl, and they moved it to a smaller arena in Southern California. The thought process, they said, was due to threats on Sergeant Slaughter, because he was the U.S. defector to Iraq at the time. Iran at the time, during the Gulf War, and so like they had legitimate concerns. True story, they couldn't sell the tickets, and that was a blow to Vince's ego, I'm sure. That they couldn't sell, though, that they couldn't sell at the Rose Bowl. And I mean, look at them now. Yes, they're selling out football stadiums 2 nights for WrestleMania. And yes, they did the Pontiac Silverdome, 93,000 on WrestleMania 3. But yeah, I mean, it just wasn't to be. So I think they put that whole worried about attempts on Sarge's life as kind of a red herring. We finally see the Rockers pick up a win, so that was, fucking finally. Um, the Nasty Boys beat the Hart Foundation for the Tag Team Championship, which I think signaled the end of the Foundation. Brett would go on his own soon after. Uh, Milestone here: Undertaker's first match with Jimmy Snuka was at WrestleMania 7. Nothing to write home about. Really it was just finding the footing for what would be the most impressive streak for in sports history, period. Um, so we saw a retirement match here where the Ultimate Warrior defeated Randy Savage, but it was the Macho King, Randy Savage. Savage would return as the Macho Man because, wrestling. Um, and the big thing here was reuniting Savage and Elizabeth. Both of these guys really did a good job of selling who was going to win, because the way the politics were going with Warrior, nobody knew, you know, whether he'd be sticking around or not. I think he ended up going away for a while after this, and so I mean, it was a legit toss up. At one point, it got real hokey, where like the Warrior was like talking to someone, the voices, and he walked out. He was walking out of the match and was going to take a count out to like lose his career. Savage went out and got him and brought him back in the ring, which ultimately cost him his career. Uh, weird, weird spots again. Weird things to protect the faces that they chose. Um, again, not a lot of other like, excuse me. Earthquake beat Greg Valentine in 3 minutes. Legion of Doom beat Power and Glory in under a minute. Um, Mount T beat Tito Santana by a minute. These all could have been just filler. There's no reason to trot them out there. Again, I don't think they were WrestleMania worthy. And then the main event, obviously Hulk beat Slaughter, because this was WrestleMania stars, superstars and stripes, and of course, Hogan came out with the blue bandana with white stars, and carrying the flag, and of course he beat Slaughter. Like how you know. So yet again, Hogan is the conquering hero, walking out as the big dog. And I don't want it to make it seem like I don't like Hogan. I do like Hogan. I thought he was a great star. I just think that this whole thing of him being involved in the championship for more or less 10 years, a decade more or less, is just is utterly ridiculous. Um, WrestleMania 8 was weird because there were a lot of stuff that was supposed to happen but didn't happen. Um, so I think, yeah, all right. So Shawn Michaels finally broke out on his own after the barbershop incident. He was supposed to face Jannetty at this Mania, but Jannetty was hurt, or they didn't feel like he had the opportunity, whatever. So he beat Tito Santana in a really good match, really showcasing where they were heading and getting away from the big guys with the rest holds and moving towards these smaller guys who could actually, work a match. Um, Taker beat Robert. Taker beat Jake the Snake. Again, that's a milestone because Jake the Snake was a big deal at the time. For the first time, and unfortunately not the last, the WWE Championship would be defended in the middle of the card. So this is where things get fucky. It was supposed to be Flair versus Hogan at this Mania, and again, this was supposed to be Hogan's last hurrah. Hogan was going to Hollywood. Hogan was going to be an actor. Hogan was an actor in some really bad stuff. But that notwithstanding, Ric Flair was supposed to face Hulk Hogan for the WWF title. I don't know if Hogan didn't want to I think Hogan didn't want to put over Flair. And that, I think, was the crux of it. So, Ric Flair defended the WWF title against Randy Savage in the middle of the card, and Savage beat him for his second and last World Championship. Um, Good match. There was a lot of kerfuffle. Mr. Perfect was out there. They kept saying they had these pictures of Elizabeth, so there was a lot of like weird, you know, that. Good match nonetheless. I mean, you wouldn't expect anything less from Macho Man and Ric Flair. Um, Natural Disasters had a shot at the tag team championship against Money Inc. I think that they should have pulled the trigger on them. But I mean timing. I think Typhoon was on his way out of the WWE to be, or WWF, excuse me, to be the Shockmaster. So they had to kind of like work with what they had. Money Inc. was a hot team at the time, and the main event. Hold on to your hats, ladies and gents. I know this is crazy, but it was Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan beating Sid Justice. Now Sid Justice was um, had obviously been hot. I think he came from WCW at the time, or NWA. I'm not quite sure where we were at the time, but he was a really hot commodity. They built him up to be this monster, and Hogan beat him. Weird, weird finish where uh, Harvey Whippleman got involved. Like Hogan hit the leg drop, and Sid was not supposed to kick out, but Harvey Whippleman was like late on his cue, so Sid had to kick out a leg drop, which nobody was happy about that. And then down comes Papa Shango, which brings out the Ultimate Warrior in his big grand fucking return, which lasted all of like a cup of coffee. Warrior was just a weird guy. He was a shooting star, man. Like when you had him and you harnessed him, man, he was a ball of energy. But unfortunately, he was a guy that just couldn't get the pieces together, man. He was gone for big periods of time, and it just never, you know, never worked out. Which is sad, because they absolutely could have made him another big star, but it is what it is. Um, Leading to the final WrestleMania I'll talk about here today, which is WrestleMania 9. Um, Now, if you listen to the podcast, you know my thoughts on WrestleMania 9. I thought that it was a better than it had any right to be WrestleMania. Tatanka and Shawn Michaels had a great, and I will say great, opener. If Dave Meltzer was reviewing at the time, I think he would have given it 4.5, if not 5 stars, for the Intercontinental title. The only bummer was that Tatanka lost on a countout, or Tatanka won on a countout, keeping his winning streak alive, but not giving him the title. I think that they probably should have pulled the trigger on that one. The Steiner brothers beat the Head Shrinkers. Again, a really good tag team match. Again, no surprise there with the Head Shrinkers. We all know that what would happen to Fatu, aka Rikishi, and the Steiner brothers are just they were ahead of their time, man. They were tag team specialists whenever tag team specialists didn't know what they were supposed to be. Um, you had some weird matches, Doink and Crush, whatever. Crush wrestled basically the whole match as a face, or I'm sorry, as a heel. Doink wrestled the whole match as a face, and ironically, later in the year, Crush would become a heel, Doink would become a face, except for the ending, which was kind of schlocky. Razor beating Bob Backlund. Again, why couldn't you find a better spot for Razor? Why the hell was Bob Backlund even there? And then comes Hogan. The Money Inc. defending the tag team titles against Hogan and Beefcake. Um, Hogan comes out with this big shiner. Allegedly, if you believe the rumors, Randy Savage gave that to him the night before WrestleMania. I don't know the validity of that, but that's what I've heard. And so this was like Vince wanted to get Hogan back in the fray, and so like this was the pound of flesh he offered. He's like, hey, how about you and your buddy Brutus win the tag team titles from Money Inc. Hogan goes, okay, let's do it. And then into the process, late into the process, things changed. Surprise, surprise. They won by, or no, Money Inc. ended up winning by disqualification, because of them using a foreign object. I mean, man, this would have been a good spot for Hogan, honestly. More to come on that. Lex Luger defeated Mr. Perfect. It was Lex Luger's WrestleMania debut. Fairly decent match. Pretty fun. Taker beat Giant Gonzalez by disqualification in a weird fucking, I don't know, man. Like the whole thing was just off. The only thing I liked about that appearance from the Undertaker is the chariot with the vulture. Other than that, that's a throwaway. And then the main event. So this will go down in the annals of history as one of the weirdest WrestleMania main events ever. So apparently, and again, this is from Bret Hart, so who knows how true it is. But apparently, the going into WrestleMania, Bret Hart was to retain the title against Yoko. That was going to be the plan. and Hogan had slimed his way into the main event. Brett said he got a call, I think, the day before or like the day of, saying, "Hey, we're gonna go in a different direction." And they talked to him about what was gonna happen with Yoko and Hulk. Brett obviously was nonplussed at the idea, but they kept telling him, "Hey, man, you know, we're gonna have a spot for you. It's all good. Like you're still our guy. We're just gonna have this kind of happen," which is a weird thing. But apparently, the day of, Hogan walked up like he was Brett's best friend, and like, you know, said to Brett, "Hey, man, I won't forget this, and whenever I can do the favor, I absolutely will." And apparently, it rubbed a lot of the boys in the back the wrong way because again, this was Hogan politicking to be the world champion once again. So Brett loses to Yoko. Apparently, Yoko went home. Like, apparently, they had a lot of big spots, and Brett was supposed to have this big comeback. And Yoko went for the go home before Brett was ready, thus basically neutering Brett's big comeback, which sucks. And then, so Yoko beats him. Fuji throws salt in the eyes, and Yoko pins him from that. Out comes Hulk Hogan, defending Bret Hart's honor because they've been such good friends in the past. Hogan's like, "Oh, we can't stand for this," and Mr. Fuji's like, "Hey, you know, Hulk Hogan, we challenge you right here, right now." And it's like, okay, all right. And Hogan beat Yokozuna in 22 seconds to get his record at the time, fifth World WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Oof, 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 oof. All right, so little bit of an afternote. Hogan was supposed to lose to Bret Hart. I think at King of the Ring or SummerSlam, and declined to do so. Hulk Hogan, who said, "Hey Bret, I appreciate it, man. I'll get you back," did not, in fact, get him back. Bret would win King of the Ring. Bret would win the next year's Royal Rumble, tying with Lex Luger. Bret would win the main event of WrestleMania 10, which we'll cover in my next one. So let's talk. How do we rewrite history here? Well, first of all, I cut out some of the garbage matches, and I know WrestleMania paydays. I get it, but I mean, I don't think you need fucking Dino Bravo or The Rock Don Morocco. You know, they're just they were just taking up space. I in a perfect world, I would have Warrior hold the title from WrestleMania 6 to WrestleMania 7 and defeat Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 7, fending off the challenge. Losing the title to Macho Man sometimes between WrestleMania, or losing the title to Ric Flair sometime between WrestleMania 7 and 8. Having Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8 be the main event, and then hold on to your butts. Have Hulk Hogan beat Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8 for the title, retire, vacate the title, have them figure out what they're going to do with it. But, like, just have him go away. And that's the end of Hulk Hogan. Hulkamania ends at WrestleMania 8, beating Ric Flair for the real world's heavyweight title. And goes away the next day. Says, "Hey, it's been a ride, but I'm outie. I'm outie 5,000. Peace." Um, you know, again, I don't think Hogan was the wrong guy. I just think that it was mistimed. That it was just so herky jerky every time WWE, WWF wanted to pull the trigger on something new, it was always Hulk Hogan there inserting himself. And even whenever he wasn't the champion, he main evented WrestleMania 8. Hogan was only ever worried about Hulk Hogan. He didn't give a shit about the business, and that's a fact. Regardless of his stance as one of the greatest of all time, he didn't care about the business. So I would definitely, probably give Savage a little bit of a longer run. Um, I don't know, like I I would definitely have Warrior still beat Hogan at WrestleMania 6 because that was an important time. I would have Warrior defeat Hogan at WrestleMania 7, have Ric Flair beat Warrior between 7 and 8, and then Hogan defeat Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8 in his last match. WrestleMania 9, I might still pull the trigger in Yokozuna and just have him because I mean he basically won the title back I think at King of the Ring from Hogan and then held it until WrestleMania anyway. So I would probably pull the trigger on that anyway and then just have, to make it, cuz the whole Lex Express thing was hinging on that. Lex becoming a big face was hinging on that, which we'll talk more about next time. And still have Hart probably beat him at WrestleMania 10 as like the conquering hero. But that is all talk for next time. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I hope you have enjoyed another edition of Rewatch, Review, and Rewrite, where we talk about some classic WrestleManias. I will be back next time to talk to WrestleManias 10 through 15. Better than you remember. Once again, this is Beef the Legend saying rock on.